Welcome to the Ask Fully Skinny podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Mark Andrew Steiner. Mark, welcome to the show. Please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. Where to start? I am a 60-year-old empty nester, if you know that term. My children are out of the house, and since 2020, and I feel like I've been reinventing myself ever since. I have been solidly in this midlife stage for probably 20 years or so. I feel like certainly as I was approaching 50, I was starting to think about first half of life and second half of life. And I started to really lean into this study, this philosophy, the science of it. And I got to the conclusion that this second half of life is nothing but opportunity. It is an exciting time. I have never thought or worried about getting old. And instead, I've thought about how can I age in a way that would make my children proud and possibly be an encouragement to others. And so I'm a successful businessman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Gig Salad, which is an online event marketplace, and we've been doing this for over 20 years. I Prior to that, I had a career in talent booking, and prior to that, I was in the movie business for 10 years. I consider myself an artist and a creative. Um, but I also, more than anything, I consider myself a seeker and somebody who's always looking to grow and to be the best version of myself. And yeah, there's more, but I'll let you dig a
Amazing
little.
introduction. I have so many questions.
Yeah,
Uh,
bring.
yeah, first, the unusual ones, and you don't have to answer. So
Oh,
if it's too personal, have you made any stupid things during your midlife crisis moment, like buying a sports car or uh, getting divorced or stuff like that?
well, as a matter of fact, I didn't buy a sports car, but I did get divorced. Yeah, after 26 years of marriage, I got divorced. That was back in 2017. So I'm around 52 years old. And you know, that was not easy. And I would say that my ex-wife and I did it as gracefully and with as much love and compassion and empathy as a couple could do it. And so I'm kind of proud of the way we got divorced. Besides that, um, what I didn't know I was uh, experiencing, or what was a part of me then, that I've only discovered in the past 2.5 years, is that I have ADHD.
Mhm.
And so the way that my mind, the way that my brain functions is not common. And I didn't know that I had this condition until I got the diagnosis. I knew that there was something that was not quite right. I was a little off, but I got a diagnosis. I got screened as a result of my daughter getting diagnosed first, and she was telling me about the symptoms, and I could relate to every one of them.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so besides that, I think what I was going through in my middle life and continue to go through is that I have a lot of ambition in me. I have a lot that I want to accomplish. There's a lot I want to do with my life. I've always had a lot of interests, and I'm trying to lean into those interests and see just how much where that interest lies, if it's just a curiosity or if it's something I want to delve into. And that has that is most prolific in my entrepreneurialism. I like starting businesses. I like I like the ideas that I have.
Mhm.
I happen to think that I have a lot of good ideas, and I've learned how to find collaborators and people to work on those ideas with me. And so that's a big focus of what I'm doing now in my life. I mean, I on the positive side of things, what did I do in my midlife in the past 3 years? I stopped drinking.
Mhm.
I've decided I really want to try to get as healthy as I can be in a very holistic way. So spiritually, physically, emotionally, and intellectually, socially, I've been striving to be again the best version of myself. And so I think one of two things happens in midlife. You either decide this is who I am and this is who I'm always going to be, and you just commit to that, and you almost are defiant. Like you're very fixed, you're very stiff, and you just accept that everything I've become up until this point is who I'm going to be the rest of my life. And I decided that I was going to look at this the other way. And the other way is you start to unpack these parts of yourself. Richard Rohr in Falling Upward talks about, Father Richard Rohr talks about, we take out, we fill these containers in the first half of our life. The ways we philosophize and, religion and work and play and sex and all the things. But a lot of that has come from our parents and teachers and mentors. The second half of life is a time where I've decided I'm going to unpack these things. I'm going to observe them. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to contemplate on them. And I'm going to decide, what is my relationship here? What do I actually believe this thing? And do I accept this thing? And I've just come to the conclusion that I don't want to be fixed. I want to continue to evolve. I want to continue to change. I used to have very de- you know determined ideas, fixed ideas about life, and here 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, I don't believe those things anymore. And so I've kind of said, maybe not be so sure about things. And now I'm more curious and I have more questions than I have answers.
Amazing. You already touched what I wanted to ask you next
Oh,
about societal expectations, because we are bombarded with so many societal expectations. And I believe the social media makes that even worse. Uh,
mm.
and you talked already. You mentioned that that these societal expectations, and that we start unclutter them when we get in the midlife. And you also hinted at this inner desire, or I like to call it soul's mission, and that we have to find our soul's mission in midlife, and that is extremely beneficial. It's not strategic. We will not die without that, but it's beneficial if we know what our soul mission is. Um, and you mentioned that you start like part of your holistic health is also spirituality. Can you touch a bit about on your spirituality, how you see it? Because these days everything is so materialistic, and we just want, okay, we need this house and this car and this kind of girlfriend, and that is uh,
Yeah.
what we want to have. How do you see what is the soul mission, and how you see, if it's not too personal, how you see your soul's mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our life's purpose in many ways is to discover ourselves. I
Mhm.
mean, it sounds very simplistic. Obviously, lots of writers and philosophers and religious teachers, spiritual guides will say this in all the various ways, whether it's Buddhism and or Christianity or Judaism. It's uh it it is a time, this short time on life, this short time on earth we have,
Mhm.
is one way to think about what this life. I used to think that life was a blink, just over the span of our eternity, of the world, of existence. We're just a flash, right? But if I live to be 100 years old, which is my goal, and then some maybe, uh, there's a lot of time in there to fill. I think it's about how we choose to live that time, the decisions that we make, and for me, in that time, I feel like my life's mission is to find my most authentic self.
Mhm.
And I happen to be someone who believes in God, um, creator. I was brought into this world into Catholicism. That I was adopted at birth, and my parents, are lifelong Catholics, still alive, still practice. I was raised in Catholicism. When I went After I left high school and moved into New York City to pursue a career in movies, uh, I my Catholic faith was still very strong and very important to me. Um, and then there came a time where I questioned Catholicism, questioned my experience, and I found another church, and it was a non-denominational Christian church.
Mhm.
And I was a part of that church for uh, uh, about 15 years. And I met my wife there. I met the co-founder in my business there. I have lifelong friends, family from that experience. But I chose to leave that church, my wife and I did, and then we just sort of bounced around to some other Christian churches, and but during that time, I gave myself permission. This will sound strange, but I gave myself permission to explore, to study, to really try to understand and appreciate other religions.
Mhm.
And that was kind of, whether it was spoken, it was just understood. To delve into other religions was sort of, taboo. It was not. Why would you do that? Um, you have the faith. Christianity is the way, etc. But I started to be curious, and I started to question. And in my journey, what I discovered was there was a lot of other there was truth. It wasn't there was there was messages, there was teachings, passages, um that didn't contradict the words of, of Christ, the
Mhm.
life of Christ. And in fact, there was there was other writings that I would go to that preceded Christ by thousands of years, and it
Mhm.
supported his message. It it was this beautiful union of an understanding for me, an aha moment, that to be so rigid and to be so fixed into feeling like I have all the answers, either in one book, um, or by one teacher, it was just, it was a little ignorant, and it was a little fearful, is the other part of this. There was this part of me that was afraid to question my faith, and afraid to explore and discover other teachings. And that was about 20 years of exploration. It's been the past 20 years of my life. Pretty deep, pretty heavy. And my conclusion is that I've come back to a belief and for me, an understanding that the life that Christ actually lived was an admirable one. It was a honorable one. It was one of love, unconditional love, and compassion and sacrifice. And that's who I want to be as a person. I'd like to be known as a person who's is a servant to others, lives a life of generosity and hospitality and um, love, peace and love. That's what I yearn for and hope that what people see in me first and foremost, above and beyond anything else, especially as you referred, this idea of consumerism, and we surround ourselves with things and stuff to, I think, make us feel fulfilled, um, make us feel worthy. Uh, but I've become sort of this anti-consumerism person. I
Mhm.
don't particularly yearn for things and stuff in at this stage of my life. After my divorce, I lived a very minimalistic life. Most of my possessions I just gave away. I gave my wife the first just choice to have whatever she wanted, and after that, I sold or gave away most everything else. And I had books, and I had my albums, music, and pictures, and those were the things that I took with me to the next stage. And I've never been happier
Mhm.
from from that from that experience, and really keeping that a part of my life. So um I guess in summary, I'm a spiritual being first,
Yeah.
foremost, and
Yeah.
entirely. And the rest of me, the the, the father, the son, uh the teacher, the business owner, the entrepreneur, the CEO, all these other labels are byproducts of me as a spiritual person living this life here and now for this period of time.
I would be amazed if you didn't receive any invitation to any Masonic lodge already, because you're a perfect fit for a Mason.
Is that right?
Yeah, you're a perfect fit.
Oh, wow. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Is that you, is that your, is that,
That is just my observation.
okay, okay,
It's just because everything what you have explained, you would be a perfect Mason. So
okay.
yeah,
Are
I'm
you a
amazed that
Mason?
you didn't receive the invitation yet from
I
your
have not. I have not.
local lodge, but maybe that's in in the
In the
future for
future.
you. Yeah, I would like to talk one more thing with
Sure.
you. I don't know how you understand it, but the shadows, our shadows, because you already touched a bit of it, but how did you when we were talking about societal expectations and our soul's mission, how did you uh, get to let's say to terms with your shadows? Because part of midlife crisis is getting to terms that we're not just good and that we have certain um, let's say inclinations that are not cherished in a society or in our surrounding. How did you come to terms with that?
That's a great question. It was with the help of some coaches and some guides, but lots of therapy, lots of counseling. And that's been a big part of my life for the better part of the past 30 years. And prior to that, the church itself served as a great place for me to um, reflect and talk and be discipled and to be, you know, um, taught, trained. Um, it's taken a lifetime. I feel like in the past 5 to 10 years, I have been in the proximity of my most authentic self.
Mhm.
And one of the ways I got there was realizing that I am human and accepting that I am human. And we as humans are flawed. We, we have our shadow side. We have our dark side. Um, we strive, this was talked about in the Bible. Paul talks about the good I want to do, I do not do. This idea that we may have the best of intentions. We may have had the most incredible influences and examples in our lives, great parents, et cetera. But we make mistakes, we sin, we fall short. And I used to think that because of my shortcomings, because of my failures, regrets, mistakes, sins of my past, um, that was going to keep me from an afterlife, a
Mhm.
pleasurable afterlife, keep me from heaven. And I've I've come to learn that heaven in many ways is here and now. It is the choice that I make in my heart. Um, and how I choose to live here and now in this present moment uh, is what will be my future, whatever that is. um if there's an afterlife, I believe that my opportunity to have a better one or a greater one is by the way that I choose to live now. And how I choose to live now is to be more kind to myself, be more accepting, to be more graceful, gracious to myself, in the same way that I want to extend that to you, to love you, to accept you, to do that without judgment, to do that to the best of my ability in an unconditional way. And if I can, and I can only do that for you as I do to myself. I can't love you any more than I love myself. So if I don't find love and peace and tranquility and acceptance in myself for myself, I can't do it to you. That is love thy neighbor as thyself, the greatest commands, right?
Mhm.
Um, I just came to understand that in a much more profound way, that as much as I want to love my partner, my spouse, my children, my parents, my neighbors, if I can't find love in myself first and foremost, and that comes from accepting the shadow side of you. And it's part of the here, it's our life is like a hero's journey. It's you have to go into that darkness. You have to experience yourself and the parts of yourself that you might not admire or like. And I had a lot of it. I started life, as I mentioned, adopted. There's a part of that whether I didn't know the whole story until I was 25 years old and I found my biological mother, and it's a beautiful story. But like we often do when we don't know the story, we make one up.
Mhm.
And the story that I made up was that I was rejected, that I was not good enough, that I was not enough, and I was abandoned. I didn't pay attention to the other side of that part. That wasn't even true, but I believed it. And I completely ignored another part of it, which was that I was chosen by these other people, these other parents.
Mhm.
And I just decided in my life that I'm going to be more positive, I'm going to be more optimistic, and that life is perspective. And I'm choosing to believe that I am good enough. I am lovable. Um, I'm enough just as I am, and that's in spite of my flaws and my shadow side.
Amazing. I really like how you explain that. and how authentic you are in explaining that. So it's a
Thank
real
you.
treat, and I could listen for hours.
Oh,
But
thank you.
before we go, uh, where can our listeners and viewers get in touch with you, Mark?
Thank you. Thinkupon.com.
Mhm.
Thinkupon.com is my new website. I launched it on my birthday, March 10th, my 60th birthday. I now have a place where everybody can go and learn all things Mark Steiner for those who might be interested. But yeah, I blog there. I write. When this podcast comes out, there'll be a link there for this. And it's where I'm thinking out loud and trying to figure out life.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being authentic, because it's so much easier to identify with someone who's authentic, who's just not telling other people's story and what happened, but you just set you as an example, and set not in a way, in an intrusive way, let's call it like that, or to be
Yes.
like an influencer, go follow me, but okay, this happened to me, everyone needs to understand, or it can happen to everyone. So be nice to yourself. I really, so this has really resonated with me. Be nice to yourself, because if you're not
Yes,
nice with yourself, how can you be nice with others people?
that is correct.
Yeah. So Mark, thank you for
Let's
this
see.
amazing podcast. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being my guest tonight.
Thank you for having me. You're a gracious host. Thank you.